The Guru is live on credentials today.
Good morning. We're on one of my favorite topics of all time, and that is credentials, licenses, certificates, all kinds of things that make us credible. I love them. I've got 9 degrees. My God, what is going on here? We can have certificates all over the place, and let's not forget actual experience. We're going to take this apart, figure out what is meaningful to building your business, what's meaningful to your clients, because that's really where it's at. I love degrees. I love having certificates and degrees and licenses and of all kinds. But is it meaningful to your client? Where does it actually meet up with building your business bigger than ever before? We're taking it apart right after this.
So, Rod, what does it mean? 7 minutes to a new career.
Well, in 7 minutes, we can have a cup of coffee. We can talk career goals and how we're going to help you make the biggest career move in your life.
That's right. There's a lot of things that Mountain Hood Realty has to offer, and Rod is a ball of energy.
I love the career, and I want to share with you my passion for building your business bigger than you ever thought it could be.
Come spend 7 minutes with us. We look forward to it.
Talk to you soon.
Here we are with the Guru talking credentials again.
Okay, credentials. Grab your cup of coffee this morning because, at least in my opinion, this is a hot one. It's credential time. Sipping my Black Rifle coffee this morning. I hope you've got your favorite drink in front of you as we build your business bigger than ever imagined together. All right, it's credential time. So what credentials are actually meaningful to the public? What credentials will bring you business in? Because, let's break a couple things down. We have licenses. Those are usually state or federal, almost always state. But they may have federal aspects to them as well. So you have licenses that allow you to do something that stop others from doing it at all. Degrees rarely do that. Now, there are some degrees you have to have in order to get into a licensure program. For example, you have to have a bachelor's degree to get into a law program nowadays. And that's been that way for a long time. So we're not changing anything up. We're not pulling the old-fashioned ladder up. It also allows you to get into things like accounting programs and so many others. But the degree programs rarely are an end-all to your client. It's doing something else that tags along with it. It's either a certificate on top of it that allows you to do something, or a license that allows you to do something. Now, there's some of you out there that are just like me, that like just to go around and collect a bunch of degrees, certificate, licenses, whatever it is, you like to go and collect it because in a lot of ways, you are an education whore. And I will admit this. I love education. I just dig it. I can spend the rest of my life just learning. And if you're like me, well, you probably have too many of all of these things. You probably have too many of them. All right, so credentials are key initially to what we're doing in real estate. So let's get this right into real estate. You want to practice real estate? Well, in every state, you've got to be licensed. If this is going to be your career, if it's going to be your given career, your career of choice that you're going to be doing full time, you're going to have to pass a state exam. You're going to have to pass a federal exam, and that's okay. Then you're going to have to become, at that point, you become licensed, and then you're going to have to join associations because associations allow your license to be enacted. I know I'm not trying to teach something today on how to get licensed. We're talking about credentials and the meaning of them and what sits behind them. So credentials are meaningful at some point because they allow you to do your career, and they allow you to do your career in the proper way. But what kind of credentials are meaningful to your client? Well, here's where we're going to have to take apart. What kind of client are we actually talking about? So if we're talking about a residential client, standard residential, suburban residential client. Let me sip my coffee this morning. All right. So we're in suburbia. We're in a city area. We don't have specialty things like wells or putting power in. We don't have other specialty water use areas or ponds. We don't have other specialty use areas of flood zones that we're necessarily worrying about. Those have already been taken care of based upon zoning and growth boundaries and where the population has went to. Now, this is huge because if that's where you're practicing, well, then you're going to want to focus your credentials in that area. Now, the opposite is also true. And it becomes this plethora of credentials that are out there to help you focus. But right now we're talking about suburban living. So you're going to want to focus credentials on things like an ABR, an accredited buyer's representative, which I am an instructor for. I love ABR. It's one of the wonderful things. There are so many others. I'm not even going to start going down the list because we could take the next 2 hours of just doing alphabet soup, of going down the list of all the alphabet credentials, the SRES, and the everything that's out there. If you are going to do a lot of buyer representation, if you're going to do a lot of seller representation, you're in suburban land, there are some beautiful credentials that can help you. Now, your client may not be initially impressed with the fact that you have an ABR or an SRES or whatever the credentials are. They may not be initially impressed. Some have heard of this, but a lot have not heard of it. You may have to make them a little aware of what your credentials actually mean. Of course, you're going to put them along with your name and they're on your card and all of that. And you never want to beat people to death with your credentials because that makes no sense. But sometimes you can highlight the fact that you are certified. You're not just licensed as a realtor, but you are certified within a certain area, a given task that gives you a heightened component of knowledge to help negotiate for them. That is wonderful. That is spot on. That will build your business. To showcase, you're not bragging, you're being humble about it. But to explain that you have a heightened component of knowledge that you have studied for, you have been tested upon, and you're certified in, that will be something you can brag about and will make sense to your clients. Because when they see you perform, remember, this business is a relationship business. I've said it 1,000 times. If you're listening to the show, you know I'm all over this. It is a relationship business every single day. And the relationship is often based upon what your performables can be and are. And what I mean by that is your performables might be slightly different based upon credentialing. For example, if you've never put together a piece of raw land, now I've done this, but if you've never put together a piece of raw land, you likely have no idea the things to go through for this. By the way, you're not going to be surprised about this. There are credentials for development. You can go and get credentials for development. And among our colleagues, you can be referred to as the development person. Remember, this is about theming yourself. It's about target audience. It's all about knowing your sphere, and that your sphere may not always be the buyer or the seller. Your sphere may be other people in the industry. One moment while I sip some coffee this morning. So let's talk about knowing your niche. This is knowing your target. You've got to begin to develop. And if you are new to this industry of real estate, maybe you recently got licensed, so you have your first credential in real estate. It's probably not your first credential. Real estate is one of those areas where people bring with them lots of credentials. They bring with them bachelor degrees, master degrees, doctorates of all forms, PhDs. It's incredible. The average realtor out there has more than a bachelor's degree. This is a well-educated field. When you're dealing with a realtor, you are likely dealing with people that are not only well-educated, but often have lots of real-world experience. That's what drew them into this field and got them so excited about it. I mean, going back here, I know I've told the story before, but at 19 years old, I purchased and flipped my first home. My family didn't have money. I had to go and negotiate. I had to figure out how to buy something. We were poor. And of course, homes were a lot less expensive back then, but let's face it, the minimum wage and the wage back then, was like $2.50, $3. I know it was not a lot of money. So the fact that the home was $27,500 felt like it was a rocket amount of money. At 19 years old, I didn't have an itch. I had a lot of strength. I didn't have credentials. I had a lot of energy. I had a lot of strength. I had a lot of willpower. I had a lot of, I think I can do something. Maybe that's where you're starting. And that's an okay place to start. We can work with that. We can take that. We can get more credentials for you. We can get credentials that are what's called stackable credentials. This is becoming extraordinarily popular. Lots of colleges, lots of universities are using stackable credentials. In fact, let me give you a peek into the window of the future. Remember, I used to be a dean of a college 14 years. I know a lot about this. Private education has been headed down the path of stackable credentials for a long time. Finally, we have the public sector, the community colleges, the universities, also heading down the path of stackable credentials. And what we mean by stackable credentials is you can step in at one level, and that's kind of a beginning level, a knowledge level. And then you can go into an advanced level, and you become certified at something. And maybe you're not in a license area, but people will have more, you will have more credibility, and people will have more assurance in using your skill sets, because now you have another certificate within that you can demonstrate knowledge, skills, and abilities. And then often stackables come in 3s, often sometimes 5s, and you can continue to move up the ladder. This is huge. So you don't want to just go and take in the, said it to you before, I'm a degree whore. I love to go out and study everything. I don't care what it is. I would have loved to have gone to vet school with my daughter. I'm not going down that path. That's not my path at all. I just dig the knowledge of it. I love the knowledge and the study of it. However, my daughter would have died if I would have went and applied for something like that and ever gotten admitted with her. That would have been the end. Nevertheless, that would have been a bad decision for me credential-wise. While it's fascinating, it's absolutely fascinating, it's illuminating to the mind, You can talk about things freely with people because you have this broad base of knowledge. It doesn't necessarily build your business. How would it build my business in real estate to have more knowledge as a veterinary? It would not help. What we want are stackable credentials within a niche. We want stackable credentials within a category. We want stackable credentials that are targeted at a particular market. Think about this for a second with me. You're probably like me and you love the study of a lot of things. Tests don't bother you. For many of you, tests are just no big deal. Take a test, you're going to pass. You're good at testing. However, think about the next time you get excited about taking a course. Is it within an area that you're trying to build your practice? Is it within the niche? Is it within the target audience that you have been aiming at? And if not currently, is it a new target that you're trying to build out? That's okay, but you want to think about it. Often I will tell my wife, I'm thinking about studying this, and she'll say, why? She's at the control panel as she is every morning, and she's laughing at me. I can hear her slightly behind the scenes laughing, saying, yeah, you're always wanting to study something. That's true, and that's why I have a sounding board to say, well, I'm thinking about studying this. What are you going to do with that? Well, I think it's interesting. Well, okay, interesting is okay. But just recognize it may not build your business one iota. It may not build your business one dime, while taking something else that matches other credentials, even though they're not officially a stackable credential, you can kind of stack them anyway because they make sense to stack together. Going over to our example of working in suburban America, the thousands and millions of homes that are in suburban America, it makes sense to have some deeper knowledge of inspections. It makes sense to have deeper knowledge of the type of roofs that are in that area. It makes sense to have deeper knowledge of the typical types of homes that were built over the eras of time within the areas that you are working in. These are the kind of credentials I'm talking about. This will help you build your credibility. When you can walk into a home, 123 Main Street, and say, oh, this home is from this era. Here's how it was built. Here's what the type of foundation they have. Here's the original kind of roof they put on. Here's why they did it at the time. This whole area was built out this way. And now we see some changes happening over time as the remodels are happening within this. You see how that builds out your credentials and builds out the trust factor with your client. Let me sip my coffee this morning. Okay. Always wanting to match your credentials. Always wanting to match your credentials to your niche. If you're not matching your credentials to your niche, and I'm talking about whether you have degrees, certificates, licenses, or anything else, try to match it together. Now, not everything, before I start getting a lot of phone calls and comments, not everything's going to be a perfect match. And I've been asked before, well, how much of it does it have to match? Well, you're probably looking for at least a 50% match. You're not going to get a 100% match because education, you probably heard the term before, is a seamless web. All education touches other education somewhere in the web of education. That's why we read things like Mary Shelley and Frankenstein and all of that, because education is seamed up with education somewhere else. But that doesn't mean I'm going to become a poet. That doesn't mean I'm going to be the next Lord Byron. It doesn't mean I'm going to be the next Melville. And if I was deciding to write the next Melville book, I think my wife would just, that'd be it. She'd be done with me at that point. She's not a Melville fan, even though I am certainly a Melville fan. All right, education. for the sake of education is never, is not a good idea for building your business. Education for the sake of education is fascinating and makes you a well-rounded person. And that's wonderful when you can walk into a room and you can have all kinds of things to say about everything. But the choice of who they're going to pick when it comes to developing a piece of raw land, is it going to be the person who has this general well-rounded? Think about this. Is it the person who has the general well-rounded education? Or is it the person who has stackable credentials combined with experience of developing the land? I guarantee you it's going to be the person that is not general, but has stackable credentials with actual experience of development. Because when people go to spend their money, this becomes for real. No longer is it fun and games sitting around having a pot of coffee between you. You got the espresso and it's flowing and it's wonderful. And you had the biscotti and you're all sitting around and you're joking and laughing about education. And, oh, that person's so smart and this person is so knowledgeable about things. Oh, I want to develop the piece of land over at 0 Union Street. And it's 0 because it's never had an address. And if you haven't done that before, that doesn't mean you can't get their credentials and go after it. But if you haven't done it, you probably need to sit side by side somebody. You probably need a mentor and build that credential out. Start working on credentials that would simply make sense to building something like that out. Now, you know I'm here for building your business every day. Bigger than ever imagined is one of our slogans. We will help you build your business larger than ever imagined. How we do that is making sure we are stacking your credentials and your education and your experience. Credentials, education, and experience. We stack these things together with a plan of how to work on it, with one-on-one coaching, putting you through a program that builds your business larger than ever before. Didn't you get into this business because you love it? I know the answer to this. Didn't you get into the business because you love it? Be honest with yourself. You went and got licensed. You took the licensing exams. You took all that together. You're making it work. You went and got yourself associated to a brokerage. And maybe you did the proper research, so you are associated to a brokerage with great fit. You still need coaching programs. The greatest people out there have coaches. The president of the United States has a coach. Everybody has a coach that is doing well because nobody can think of everything, and you need a sounding board to keep you in the middle of the road. Otherwise, if you're like me and lots of people, we tend to have all kinds of thoughts, and wouldn't this be a good way? Wouldn't that be? And they might be great ways to go. But do they fit your stackable credentials, education, and experiences that you currently have? Or is it an area you're just interested in? Interest is one thing, but do you want to build it out? That's different. That's when we are really making a difference and focusing on ourselves. Okay, let me sip some coffee this morning. Okay. I would love to hear from you, by the way, in the comments. I would love to hear from you about what kind of credentials do you see in real estate? And be honest about it, because we all have lots of credentials. I mean, over the years, the many credentials that you could have out there. Which ones have made sense to you? Whether it's an initial behind your name or a certificate or another license, what has helped you close more business? I would like to hear from you on this. What has helped you close more business? Let's get a conversation started about what helps you close more business than ever before. What has been the turning key? What has been the factor that has helped you network better? Because some credentials network with our colleagues and not necessarily directly to the buyer or the seller. Some credentials are networked better within the colleagues. Like we're looking for, my example is a developer. And developers, we're looking for, I'll start asking my colleagues, who do you know that's a developer within a particular area? Who do you know that's a developer within Cowlitz County? Who do you know that's a developer within Douglas County? You start asking around, and some of these types of credentials are networked within our colleagues very well. I would like to hear from you in comments. Also, of course, take a moment, like the show. I would love it if you like the show. And if you want more content of building your business of this type, hit the like button. It instantly tells me this is working. Also, go over to YouTube, and we have it right down here in the banner, the YouTube link, where you can go over to YouTube and you can open up something very special. You can open up the Guru members only events by subscribing to the show. It costs you nothing. There's no cost to subscribe, but you have to do it within YouTube. You may be watching this on multiple different areas within social media because we're simulcast across lots of social media. But in YouTube, we have a special category. You can hit the subscribe button and be part of the Guru members only events where we build your business, and we take a deeper dive often into special categories to build your business larger than ever before. This is Real Estate Daily. I'm your real estate guru, and I'm here to help you build your business larger than ever imagined. I'll see you tomorrow.